So welcome back to another episode of the Aaron Novello podcast. I have with us a beautifully bearded young man by the name of Mr. Sandoval. He is a powerhouse of an agent. Jim is in his geographic area, sells a whole bunch of homes and makes a whole bunch of money. So thank you kindly for taking the time to be with us, and really appreciate you, spending some time with us, particularly with everything that's going on. And I know that people are going to get a lot out of our time together. So thanks for being here, man.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Aaron. Welcome, everybody.
My pleasure, man. So when I think of you, Jim, I think of a few things, right? The first one is that just like this really supersonic commitment to sales, right? And being a salesperson. I remember one of the first times I ever met you in person, you came up to me, we were at an event, and you came up to me and asked me a question about how to handle an objection. And you had a recorder in your head. Like, I looked down, there's a recorder right there. And I was like, yes, I love this guy, man. Like, he's totally committed. And the other thing I think about is I really have a lot of respect for your kind of like whatever it takes mentality, because I'm aware that you do really whatever it takes. And we're going to get into that, some of the door knocking stuff that you do. So I guess if you could first, Jim, is just kind of talk to the audience about your initial journey, like when you initially got started, what did that look like? And then if there was any kind of epiphany or aha around this is a sales business and here's what I need to do, bringing us up to the present day.
Awesome. Thank you, Aaron. So when I first started, I was getting laid off from corporate. I used to work for a behavioral health insurance company. I used to get incoming calls. Obviously there's no sales background at all. And I remember telling my family, I was back in 2006, like my cousins, not my immediate family, but like my cousins, my friends, people that were around my age that I grew up with. And I'm like, hey, I think I'm going to get into real estate. Like I had this guy come over to because I already owned a house back in 2006. He came over to my house and he said that if he was to sell my property, he was going to make this much money. So I was looking at the whole 6%. Like I didn't understand really like how it was divided. And I said, hey, since we're going to get laid off from corporate, it would be a good venture for me to go into sales. And all I got was a lot of people telling me, hey, look, I had someone that went into sales and it just didn't go well for them. Like, you've never done sales. I don't think that's a good idea. So because like right from the get-go, like I started to get challenged from the people that I loved and was expecting like a different support. They gave me that fuel to be like, okay, I'll show you, I'll show you how someone could succeed. And then obviously, as I was trying to get my license, we have that severance package that we got from corporate, and I'm trying to get my license, and people are just saying, hey, the market's shifting, like you really shouldn't do this. It's going to be really tough because at 2006, the market was already shifting. And I just said, hey, look, I'll do whatever it takes. So I've always been into cars. Two big things that drive me. In addition to family, my parents, my in-laws, my wife, my brothers, my sisters, it's the material things like cars drive me, and experiences like vacations drive me. So I had a really nice car back in the days, a 1996 Ford Mustang Cobra Mystic. And that was my baby, right? So I sold that. So I had some money in reserves to be able to get started. And then I said, okay, I have the savings account, but I don't want to tap into it if I don't have to. So I either have to learn very quickly, or I have to find another job at the same time. But I want to do real estate full time. So what I did was I got a newspaper route. And I've done that like many years in the past in high school. In high school, I had like 3 jobs. So that's probably where I get some of my work ethic. So I had I went back to the newspaper route, right? Back in 2006, and I'm throwing newspaper and doing real estate during the day. Waking up at like 1:00 in the morning, going to the warehouse center, packaging the newspapers, like 500 newspapers on a weekday that I had to drop off. And then going to deliver those newspapers. I would be back in bed by by 5 a.m. By 5 a.m., wake up by 7, and then go into the real estate office. So that's kind of how where I came from and how I got started. Once I was in real estate. I remember my broker, Joe Alexander, he's a big Jim Rohn fan. And he always used to tell me like, hey, look, you're just 90 days away. Cause I'm like, hey, dude, I'm tired. Like I've been doing this newspaper route already for like 4 months. I haven't tapped into my savings account, which is great, but I still haven't been able to put a deal together. And, you know, I've always been doing like door knocking because like our office is really big in geographic door knocking. And at that point, like that was my understanding. Like I was just door knocking a geographic area. But once I got into Mike Ferry, then my coach said, okay, that's not your geographic farm. That's your center of influence, right? Like you're door knocking your center of influence. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's great. So it was more like accepted in my mentality because, you know, Mike Ferry is saying like, hey, don't farm, don't do that. Like that just doesn't work. But my coach said, no, keep on doing it, right? Like that, you're getting the leads, you're getting stuff. Yeah, 4 months went by. My broker's like, hey, you're 90 days away. I'm like, dude, I'm doing the math. Like how many more 90-day cycles do I have to go by? Like, I think I'm just going to apply to the, I tried to do like police academy and the fire academy. And he's like, dude, just wait a little bit longer. And I started in April and I took my first for sale by owner in September. And then that gave me the confidence then to close all these leads that I had in my geographic farm. So like after that, like then I just built the confidence and it was like a ripple effect, just start taking a whole bunch of listings after that.
And then it was off to the races. That's awesome, man. I was taking notes as we were talking and, you know, I noticed a few things, right? Like one is I find it interesting that when I ask people questions around like why you do this, and you get all these different types of answers. They're like, you know, I love people. And I'm like, you haven't dealt with enough people, you know what I'm saying? Or they're like, I love houses. And I'm like that's no. But what was very clear to me about what you said is you were selling your house. You looked at the professional fee, right? Which is a euphemistic way to say commission. And your eyes got big. You were like, bro, like that could be a good business to be in, right?
Absolutely.
So definitely motivated by monetary value. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because I know that like, as I grow more, I can give more. So you had to grow into the person who can add value to people. And then, you know, when you become a blessing in somebody's life, your life gets blessed in return. One of those blessings is money, right? So that was interesting to me. The other thing I wrote down is that you were very much so motivated by a challenge. You had a lot of people questioning you, being like, come on, man, like, I don't think that's a good idea. And it was just like, okay, then fine. like I will show you, right? Like, you know, that I'll be able to accomplish this. And then the other thing, which I think is very important, is that you're crystal clear on what motivates you. You know, as you know, not only do I have the good fortune of being in kind of the residential resale game and, you know, selling real estate in high volume, but I also coach around 38 agents throughout the country, 7 of which are in 7 figures. And
nice.
What I find very interesting though, is I get this question a lot. Like, I don't know what my why is. Like, I don't know what my motivation is. And what's so interesting is right off the bat, you're like, dude, I'm crystal clear on that. It's cars and it's experiences. And I've seen some of the cars that you own and I've seen some of the experiences that you've taken. So you know specifically why it is that you were out there pounding the pavement, knocking on doors and all that stuff. And I guess I'm curious for you, how powerful of a fuel is that, right? Because I'm sure there's days like you don't really feel like doing it. Like if you're anything like me, right?
Correct. And obviously, like you get to a stage where like first you do it for yourself, right? Like, so you do like the cars for yourself for the rewards, right? You do the experiences for you and your fiance, your wife, your girlfriend. But then later on, like it's like to inspire the next generation, right? So, like right now, like I'm not so fueled like for the reward that it brings to me, but it's like the rewards that it brings to my nephews, right? Like, okay, like let's go to Carson Coffee with my uncle. Like, hey, can we please go over there? Can we go to this toy drive? Can we go here? So it's more of inspiring the next generation, right? So it's just interesting the way it works. Because first it was like I gotta have this, but now it's like, okay, I gotta continue this because I have to give those experiences back to my nephews, right? And allow them to also dream big and say, hey, look, if I did it, you guys could do it. And actually one of my nephews actually works with me now as a runner. and
Really?
he's like the one that, yeah. So he's like the one that contacts me the most, and just like anything that we do, he's just there. He's like, hey, like, what are you doing? Like, hey, why did you say that? Because he hears me at the office. And then with the experiences, it's once again, like first, it was for me and my wife, but then we've taken vacations where we took like her parents, her siblings, my siblings, my nephews, and it's like, okay, there's 18 people, right, in a beach house in Belize, with an infinity pool, volleyball court, with his own private dock, and it's like just doing those experiences now with like the whole family, like that's what's gratifying, that's what's rewarding, right? Being able to provide now opportunities, like inviting them over to a Tony Robbins event and having the experience to be in premier seating and like talking to other people that have been in Tony Robbins for quite a long time, and that could elevate my sister and say like, hey, like this is what I've experienced at your age, I wish I would have done this, right? So just giving them that experience and that exposure, like that's what drives me now. I was able to retire my parents at a ranch that reminds them back of their country, right? Like being back home in their country, because it's a ranch, like there's animals, there's horses. So like being able to share that. So that's like my big why right now. So it's not just for me anymore. Now it's like to be able to give back and get those reactions from my family.
Yeah, that's beautiful, brother. I wrote it down, and I think it's very true for me as well. This natural kind of internal evolution, where like initially, like it's okay, I got to do this so I can get this, and now it's I got to do this so I can give this.
Yep, exactly.
And that's a very interesting internal evolution. And I'm aware that I don't know about you, but I will do way more for other people than I will myself.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
So that's a really beautiful thing, and hopefully people can really catch that, because I'm aware, a lot of agents, particularly at the beginning, particularly if you're young and you're kind of aggressive trying to get at it, we look at like the fancy cars, the watches, the clothes, all that stuff, and what I'm aware of is that stuff's not really sustaining. So what I hear you saying to me is like, well, that stuff is cool and it's nice and we like it, but I'm also aware, like you're saying, watching the reactions of your family who've never been like out of the country before, and they're in that like thing in Belize, and it's like, oh my God. And you're like, dude, I just gave that, like I gave that experience to them. They wouldn't have been able to experience that if it wasn't for me. That's, you can't like buy that with money, right?
Absolutely. And it's so crazy because like they've been out of the country, like going back home to Mexico, but they'd never been to a foreign country. So like seeing my dad turn into a kid, like, right, like you're this grown man, right? And like he turns into a kid, like he's next to the guy and he's like, oh, tell me more about that. Like I want to learn more about this history or that history. And then just like seeing my mom and being able to see like everybody just getting along and having a good time, right? Because we work hard, right? Like, so at least for me, like I don't, and that's something I need to get better at. Like I don't share that much time with them, like when I'm at work, but to be able to, for my mom to be able to see the family together on that vacation and be like, hey, look, this is great. Like I think I understand like why my son works so hard.
Yes.
To be able to provide stuff like this for us or for his family. So that's really gratifying.
Yeah, I'm aware that it's fulfilling.
Yeah.
Right. Beyond just kind of that initial like bump of like, when you get like when you hit a goal, or like you get that new car or whatever, and it's like, it's exciting. But then I'm aware like over time, it fades. It just becomes like your car, like, okay, cool. But what you're describing is more something where it's like, it's more lasting, right?
Yes.
So what I wanted to also talk to you about was this idea of knocking on doors. Because what I'm aware of, man, is like most people mentally, as when a lot of people get in this game, they don't really realize what it is, which is that it's a direct hardcore sales business, no different than selling books door to door, knives door to door, subscriptions over the phone. And it seems as though like you never had that issue. You mentally never like resisted that, like, yo, this is just what this is. And I share with people all the time that you need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. So I have to see what is, and when I can see what is, then I can make decisions in accordance with that that'll lead me to getting what I want, right? And you just kind of embrace that initially. So talk to me about like that kind of just acceptance of that, and also like how you go about, because I'm aware knocking on doors isn't easy, man. We're in a group together, right? We text each other and like you're sending pictures, man, all smiley and shit in your suit. You got your things fanned out and you're like, yo, I'm pounding it. And it's like in the morning and you're knocking on doors and then I get a text from you at 6 your time and you're back out there doing it again. So like, talk to me a little bit about that. Like not only the kind of mindset behind that door knocking and the acceptance of it, and also kind of specifically strategically, like how you go about doing that. Like what's the process and system of how you do that?
Definitely. So I'll first start off, Aaron, like with just making it super simple for like for someone that's brand new, and that might not have a name brand in a geographic area, right? So if you're brand new, like you have nothing else to do, right? Like, I mean, what else are you going to do, right? Like you don't have the problems that you and I have. So when I first started, because I was like our company, like you had to pick a geographic farm, you had to door knock. All I did was just door knock, right? And then as I got introduced to my theory, I told you I started using the for sale by owner script, the expired script. So when I started, I think I was averaging like about 100 contacts a day door knocking. Same thing. So like I would go into the office, the meetings would end like right around 10 at the company. So like by 10, I would drive to the farm. I would be there at 10:30 and door knock all the way until like about 1 o'clock, right? Because I feel that that's a good stopping point, because if people go home for lunch or something like that, I'm just trying to like strategize or leverage myself where if I'm going to be door knocking, like I'm out at their door. I feel that there's, from experience, there's this dead time from like 1 o'clock to about like say 4:30. And what I mean dead time, I mean there's like fewer contacts that you'll make in that time. So then I would go back out to my farm at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock. And then from there, if you're new, right, you could door knock all the way until like 8:30 p.m. Like there's no problem with that, depending on time zones and you know, time of the year. Like it might be pitch black by like 7:30 or so, or 7 o'clock, but you can still door knock until 8:30 and just speak to them through the door, right? Because as I told you earlier, like you have to look at that as you're building your center of influence. Like you're building that, right? You're nurturing that. But that's just another layer on top of the immediate business, like the expire, the for sale by owners, right? Because you can't just do door knock and not do the other sources. Like you can't just focus on past clients and not call expireds, right? Because if you do that, then you're not going to sell real estate at a high volume. So I can tell you that last year, I did 50 transactions from my geographic farm, 50, right? Which is a huge number. And I'll get to it in a moment in regards to how I did it. So if you're brand new, like that's what I would do. Door knock. And you can start door knocking as early as 9 a.m. all the way to 1 p.m. And then again from 4:30 all the way to 8:30, right? Because you have nothing else to do. And when you're starting, like you just make notes, like mental notes. If you're door knocking for an expired, you're probably not going to come back, so your notes don't have to be that detailed, right? So if there's an expired listing, you should still door knock the surrounding homes in the area, because we know there's going to be another seller listing in that neighborhood. But if you're going to pick a geographic area, just take notes. So if you're door knocking during the summer and you saw Joey, the grandson of the owner, hey, just write a note. Hey, Joey was visiting here during the summer. So when you come back around, hey, how was your time with Joey during the summer? Like, did you see him? How often did you see him? So just make those references, right? Because you're building that center of influence. Like that's what you're doing. You're not building a geographic farm. You're building your center of influence. So that would be like the simple way of doing it. Now, like the more advanced way of doing it, like for you and I, like if I was to tell you, hey, Aaron, if you're going to start door knocking as a top producing agent, like this is how I would do it. I would pick a territory where you know there's a high turnover, right? Because it doesn't make sense for you to put the effort in the neighborhood where the turnover doesn't exist, right? So look at the stats, pull a map, and see where there's a high turnover. Then for you and I, it doesn't make sense. If there's a top producing agent in that area, like you and I could compete with that. But if you're a newer agent and you're doing that search, don't even try to get in, or don't think like, oh my, like I'm going to drive them out of this geographic farm, because you're not going to be, it's going to take too much effort and too much money for you to do that. For you and I, it wouldn't, but we should be aware of like how active that agent is and how many sales that agent's selling in that area. So once you look at the turnover, the competition, then start small. I would say start with about 2,000 homes, and that's small to me, like 2,000 homes. I'm currently, in order for me to sell 50 properties, I expanded to 5,500 homes, but it's all with a strategy, right? So I start with 2,000 homes right here, and the 5,500 are adjacent to the 2,000. So it's not like if I have 2,000 here, and then I'm going to go all the way over here and pick 3,000 over on this part of town, right? So it's all adjacent. And what I found out from that is that one of two things happens with that, Aaron. Either the parents or the children who's now about to get married or recently got married live in the most inexpensive part of that 5,500 homes. And then once again, either the parents or the children are going to move west to a superior neighborhood. So now when I'm door knocking, it's easy for me to get the family's business. Why? Because mom and parents, children and parents live in the same geographic area. Does that make sense? So once again, and that's the center of influence. Like in my center of influence, like I have your mom raving about me and I have your son raving about me, right? So it's easier for me to get business. And when you go on those type of appointments, once again, it's a center of influence appointment. It's not like I'm not going up against like 10 agents, right? Like I'm not going up against 10 agents. When we discuss commission's not an issue. And there's bonus commissions on top of the standard 6% commission, right? Like there's different things, and they just have blind faith in you, and they have no reason why to question that, because they've seen you over and over and over and over again for the last few years, that it just becomes a lot easier to do that. So once you pick your territory, I don't knock on adjacent streets, right? So that's a mistake that a lot of agents make. The huge mistake with people that have a geographic farm is they are following the old school way of doing it. Like I'm following the Mike Ferry way of doing it, right? Like what does Mike Ferry say? If you sell a property, right, like tell everyone in that neighborhood, because most likely 2 other homes are going to sell in the area. With that, I had adopted that and I implemented that to geographic farming. So when I door knock in these 5,500 homes, like I don't start up here, right, and start door knocking all these adjacent streets, right, all the adjacent streets, and then finish by following that pattern, like filling in like all the streets. No, like I'll door knock up here, because there was a cell here. And I know regardless if it was my cell or someone else's cell, I'm going to door knock right here, right? So I'll fill in like a hard copy map and say, okay, I door knocked this area, so I covered that, right? And then let's say there's a brand new listing that comes over on this side of town in the 5,500 homes. Then I'll door knock that active listing, because they're going to see the for sale sign. Most likely someone else is going to start saying, hey, well, is this the right time? Should we list now? We just saw that, the Johnsons listed their property. If there's a closing, I already told you about a closing. If there's a pending, something goes into pending, like I'll go door knock over there. If it's an expired listing, I'll go door knock there. If there's a for sale by owner, I go door knock there. So wherever the activity is, that's how I door knock. So I don't necessarily have to cover the 5,500 homes. I have to be bouncing back and forth from all the activity. But that's why I'm so successful at doing it, because I'm not following the traditional geographic way of farming. I'm doing the Mike Ferry way of farming. And I don't think like any coach told me that, but they did tell us, hey, go door knock where the cells are, let everybody know. So I just once again adopted that and applied it to the geographic farming. Now, when I come in, I use the same just sold Mike Ferry script. I hardly ever use a just listed, because I want to bring some of the value. So I'll use the just sold Mike Ferry script. But the one-liners that I add, I will say, and I'm not saying change your script, so this is what works for me. So I will say, I just sold another home, right? So given some credibility, I just sold another home. So that's what I add. Or I'll just say, I'm working really hard to keep the values up in the area. And I'll throw in those one-liners. It could be multiple times when I say I'm working really hard. I could say it at the beginning when they're about to like shut the door on me. Hey, before you close that door on me, I'm just working really hard to keep the values up in the area. So Aaron, tell me, who do you know that wants to sell a property in the area? And like once I say that, like they actually open up. And towards the end, right? If they're like, I went through all my questions, all my script, just sold questions. And then I will ask at the end, well, before you let me go, if you were to come across someone that wanted to buy or sell, do you have a great agent you refer your friends and family members to? If they say no or whatnot, then I say, hey, I'm just working really hard. Would you mind calling me if you came across someone like that, right? So just adding those one-liners there, just to give credit to the neighborhood that, hey, look, I'm not doing it here to get another listing. Like, I'm doing it to keep the values up in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Now, and are you collecting data like from these people? Like, are you getting email addresses? Are you mailing stuff to the geographic farm? Like, what does that look like?
Great question. So I am. I still do it like with a hard copy book that I get from Title, right? Like, it has everybody's name and stuff like that. Obviously, the right way of doing it would probably be with an iPad, and maybe some of these younger kids like could figure out a way like how to do it and then carry like all the door knocking pieces. But yeah, I collect the data, so I collect their when at closing, I would say, hey, let me text you my contact information, right? So that prompts them to give me their cell phone number. And if there's a pause, I'll just, obviously, like we've been taught, like I'll ask, okay, so is that a 818 area code or is it a 310 area code, right? And I'll let them finish the sentence. And yes, I get their email address. But the one that, the two that I do more frequently is mailing a piece, a just sold piece, mailing that out. And once again, I don't have to mail it out to the 5,500 homes. I could just mail it to wherever the activity is, to the different parcel numbers. And it's just sold with, on the bottom it has, I think I've shown you in the past, like it has like the return CMA card, so they could like build in like, I'm interested in a free market evaluation, I'm interested in selling my house, I'm interested in buying a home, so they could just return that, and it's like already the postage is already paid for. And then I call. So those are the ones I use to the most frequently. It's obviously door knocking first, then calling, and then mailing.
And then as far as like your kind of, because I'm imagining people be like, well, what's your schedule, Jim? Because you're calling, you're door knocking, and you're with the mailing. I'm aware the mailing is something that goes out that doesn't require too much input from you, but the door knocking and the calling, like, so do you have like certain days that you do door knocking, certain days you do calling, or do you do door knocking, calling every day?
Great question. So calling, it's mainly like for rainy days, and even on rainy days sometimes we're out there, or it could be for a day that it's just things are just chaotic, right? Like I just I'm way behind. Like, I don't want to get in my car, drive to my geographic farm. And by the way, like, my geographic farm is about 10 minutes away from my office. So also, if you're going to pick a geographic farm, like, don't pick something that's 45 minutes away, because then it's going to be a lot harder to go and actually prospect that geographic area. So we use mainly door knocking, and I share the schedule. So even right now, I don't do much of that aggressive morning schedule. Like right now, as a top producing agent, I would say my goal is to be in the farm like by 11 a.m. and be there until like 1 a.m. Right, and then later on in the evening, I would say I'll probably get there around like 5:30 until 7:30. Unless if I'm behind on my goals, then I might pull 2 nights where I go all the way until 8:30, and that's Monday through Friday. And then the best day to actually door knock are Saturday mornings, because at that point everybody's chill. They're working on their garden, working on their car. So a lot of that stress from the hustle from Monday through Friday, like that's not there, and like people open up and they start to talk to you. You really get to talk to people that you might have not spoken to like in 6 months or 12 months that you happen to find them home. But yeah, that will be my schedule. I mean, mainly door knocking. The phone's only if I'm running behind on my schedule, or it's like a thunderstorm outside and I can't go out door knocking.
Yeah, that's so interesting, man, and I love it because like it's so. I'm aware that there's very few people who do that and who have built their business that way. I know for me, like I've done door knocking before, but not anything to the degree that you are. And I've built my business just via the telephone, and it's cool because it shows that all roads lead to Rome. right? Where the phone is more efficient, but in person is more effective because you're going to get more direct kind of FaceTime with people. And I guess I'm wondering, like, I'm thinking in my head too, because I'm imagining people are like, well, what does he wear when he's knocking on the doors? And I can promise you guys, because I get those texts, he looks just like he does right now, no matter what temperature it is. So like, are there any tricks to the trade for that? Because like, I'm imagining people are thinking in their head, they're like, oh man, like it's hot, I'm gonna sweat, like, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah. So for like summertime, yeah, you'll see me like this even during summertime. If it's like in LA, we'll hit like triple digits. So I'll also be wearing a suit. Um, like at least for my suits, the way I get them made, like I have like the back, like my back, there's like less layers, so it vents a lot easier, right? So it's not that hot. So even though like I have like the traditional suits, material on the side, like the back, it's just like this opening cut out so that it's much cooler. At least I don't have like this other set of layer. Like for the summertime, I carry an extra set of like another shirt in my car. Take a lot of water, but that's how I get my list. Like when people see me, like sweating, right? Like they're like, dude, like if this guy is working this hard to service this community, like I can only imagine like how hard he's gonna work to service our listing, right? So I actually, those are the times that I like door knocking. So I like door knocking when it's raining, right? Because then people would say like, wow, if this guy's at my door when it's raining, like I could only imagine like what he's gonna do when he takes my listing, right? The only thing different, it's that I'm wearing sneakers, right? So I'm just wearing like some Nikes, like black Nikes, because like you're walking a lot, right? So like you want to like kind of save that energy. And then just I always, since I'm going to these different spots, like I always just park my car nearby where I could go back and like grab some water. And obviously you're drinking so much water, you gotta, you know, find out where the nearest McDonald's or Subway is, so you go to use the restroom. But yeah, I mean, just for me, and it's a mindset. Like I'm always like just saying like positive affirmations as I'm door knocking, because you are like what am I doing here? Like I don't have to do this anymore. Like what? Like this is insane. Like what am I doing? Yeah. But then like you said, if your why is big enough, like what does it matter? Like there's these other guys, you know, during the summertime up on the roof, like doing a roof, right? Like I'm door knocking doors, and like see people's like, oh, like my ego's too big for me to go out like knock on doors. Like I don't need that. The rewards that you and I get, Aaron, for the service and the outcome we provide, it's so high that it just makes it worth it. Like if I just divide how much I make an hour, right? And if I multiply that by the times I'm door knocking, like it just makes sense to door knock. Like why wouldn't I do it, right? The other way for the amiable audience is that if I don't take that aggressive approach to get in front of people, especially right now, because at least in my marketplace, like people are not answering the phones. I mean, right now with the pandemic, yeah, the numbers have gone up. People are answering the phones, but before the pandemic, people were not answering the phones anymore. So I could be on the phones for a long time, and my contacts, and that's another thing I haven't spoken about. Like my contacts, let's just say it's 5 contacts in an hour on the phone, but if I'm door knocking, I'm at 12 contacts. I'm averaging 10 to 12 contacts in an hour. Yeah. Right. So I'm reaching out to a lot more people. So for the amiable people, like you have to think about, like, if you don't door knock, like you're actually doing that community a disservice, because they're going to end up with another agent that's not going to give them the knowledge, right? The attention. I mean, how many times we call a for sale by owner, an expired listing, and they're like, yeah, like they didn't do this, and like, oh my God, I can't believe like you guys don't deserve that. And right, like, so I also take that approach and saying if I don't do it that way, they're not going to get like the Aaron Novello experience or the Jim Sandoval experience. Like I have to get in front of these people.
I love that, man. So I wrote down 3 of these mindset pieces. Is like, one is when it's extra hot or it's rainy and it's extra difficult. And it's interesting because we share this in common. Is it's like with the story, because I'm aware that, and you know, because of your kind of time spent with Tony Robbins and such, is that we have the capacity as humans to make up stories, and to give meaning. And that meaning can either be really empowering or it could be disempowering. So the meaning that you give it when it's hot out or rainy is like, you get excited. You're like, yes, like they're going to see
Absolutely
how hard I'm willing to work just to earn their business. So that's the meaning that you give it. Instead of telling yourself a story like, oh, it's hot, and like, oh, like, you know, that whole sort of thing, which is disempowering, you give it a different meaning.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing I thought that was interesting is like another story you tell yourself is like, yo, it's my obligation to do this. Because if I don't do it, they're not going to get my experience. And I know my experience is better than other people's experience.
Exactly.
And I love that kind of story. And then the third thing is just very practical, is you looking at the numbers and saying, gosh, like here's how much I make in a year. And if I break that down, like per door, it's like whatever it is, 50, 75 bucks a door. So it's like, why would I not do this? Like, this just makes logical sense, right?
Correct.
Yeah. I love that, man. I love it so much. So I guess I'm curious quickly, is what are some of those affirmations? Like we've got some of the mental maps, like some of the kind of stories you tell yourself, but what are some affirmations like while you're out there? Because some people might think like the great Jim Sandoval, like he doesn't question it. And you were even saying, you're like, sometimes you're like, what the hell am I doing out here? Like, this is ridiculous. So like, what are some of the affirmations you tell yourself as you're doing this?
So I have like one that I just repeat myself over and over again. And this is not like along the whole Tony Robbins like type of affirmation. This is more like a business type of affirmation. So I'll give you the long version of it. So if I'm door knocking, and trust me, it is hot. And like from one door to the other door, I'll say, and I don't know if anyone has heard me, but I'll say it out loud. Like I'm not saying it like internally, like I'm actually speaking it.
Yeah.
And with a big smile on my face, people are home and happy, and they hire me at a 6 and 7%, and they hire me at a 6 and 7% commission in the month of April. People are, oh no, I'm sorry, I screwed that up. See, I'm getting nervous again. So I'll say people are home and happy, and 15 homeowners hire me at a 6 and 7% commission in the month of May. People are home and happy, and 15 homeowners hire me at a 6 and 7% commission in the month of May. So I'll just say that over and over, but it's just like, you know, like I focus, and sometimes like I'll slow down, like that pattern interruption that Tony Robbins does. Like, I don't know if you've seen him, like you just, like I'll do it in funny voices. Like I'll slow down. Like I'll just do it in a different way so that I really like just believe and buy into that and understand that, yeah, people are home and they're happy, because it sucks. Like you're door knocking. I'm like, and especially like for us, because it happens, like we're human. I'm like, dude, like I've been coming through to your door for the last 14 years, and you're gonna be this rude, like that's crazy. But I don't know what's happening behind that door. Like they could have just had an argument, like something could have happened. So I don't take that personal. But if you get a couple of doors like that back to back, like it's like, and it's 100 degrees outside, you're like, shit, what am I doing here? Yeah. But it doesn't matter what happens. Like, hey, I check myself, and then I just keep on going. Because we have to do, right? We're in the business of rejection. I like to joke around with my clients when I tell them that I prospect a lot to find buyers for my sellers.
Yeah.
I tell my sellers that I'm in the business of rejection. Like I get rejected a lot, and I'm well trained because at home, right? Like I get rejected a lot. So they just get a chuckle from that.
Yeah, I love that, man. And you know, what comes to mind, and I'll leave everybody with this, is that, and again, I sincerely appreciate you sharing, man. People are going to get so much out of this. It's great. Is the story of a guy named Bill Porter. You ever heard of Bill Porter?
No, I can't say I have, Aaron.
Oh, interesting, man. You'd love it. So he was a guy who had cerebral palsy. He walked with like a little bit of a limp, and he like slurred his speech a little bit. And through his life, you know, he wanted to be able to support himself, and he tried to get a job selling stuff, and everybody kind of turned him down. And he found this job selling kind of little products, like vanilla products, like stuff you would find in a kitchen, out of a catalog. It's the one company that said that they would give him a shot, and they gave him the shittiest territory. It's like the worst. Nobody wanted to be there, right? And what this guy did for 30 years, bro, is he just woke up every morning at the same time, got dressed, took a bus to his farm, and knocked on doors for 8 hours a day. And he became the top salesperson, right? For this, like, you know, catalog, with a limp and slurring his speech, just because he did that activity. And like, when I'm hearing your story, I'm like, dude, like this is there's fundamentals. Like if you're just willing to, like you said, I'm in the rejection business. I tell people that all the time. The more I get rejected, the more, more opportunities that are available to me. And that's another one of those little mental maps. So I appreciate you, brother. Like good for you, man. Congratulations on turning yourself into the person who can do this on a regular basis. I know you're going to serve as an inspiration for a lot of people. So if people want to find you, dude, or send you referrals, where can they find you?
They could just text me. My number is area code 818-687-1512.
Awesome. And if you ever want to see him, go into his geographic farm. You'll see him knocking on doors. So I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much. You make it a great day. Okay. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Take care.